Hi there, everyone. I'm going to review Terminator 3 Rise of the Machines. This movie came out in 2003, and it's more or less, I don't know, similar movie to the first two movies. However, in this movie, John Connor is grown up, sort of, and is on the run and is living in hiding because he thinks that Skynet is not technically dead, not technically done. So he's living in hiding and he's living off the grid and he's trying to get jobs that don't require any paperwork or any identification to get into. So he's doing a lot of construction work, stuff like that. More or less, he's trying to live away from the system. And apparently Skynet cannot find him. Not that it really matters, because I'm not sure that Skynet could find him anyways, given the fact that the events of the first film and the second film indicate Skynet had troubles with this regardless. It doesn't really, I don't know if it matters that he lives off the grid. Because apparently uh, Skynet finds him anyways. Um, but this movie is interesting for the fact that it was the third movie and it was not directed by James Cameron. And that changes things up a little bit. Jonathan Mostow, I don't know. He's fine as a director. I don't think there was anything really wrong with the film. It's just the fact that it feels a little bit off with Terminator 2. There's just something about the two movies that feels different. And Terminator 3 benefits from 12 years of advanced increases in visual effects technology. So this is like Terminator 2 on steroids. So in Terminator 3, you got a bunch of stuff happening that would be, I mean, in prior movies would have been just difficult to do. Period. There's a lot of visual effects heavy work here, particularly in one sequence which would have been downright just impossible to do in an earlier time period, involving a construction crane, more or less. I think that's what it is. And how's the film running? Well, John Connor ends up injured, and he has to go to a local clinic. And of course, he can't go to a regular clinic because they're going to book him. They're going to ask for his name. So he goes to a veterinarian clinic, and he gets some sedative drugs and stuff like that so he can work off the pain he just got. He would almost hit a deer. He's so worried about Terminators and everything finding him that he's worried about deers on the road too. Apparently, the deer on the road might be a Terminator. But nonetheless, this movie opens up basically. He goes to a veterinarian clinic, and it's kind of funky how the Terminators arrive because the one Terminator arrives in the middle of a mannequin display in a store, and of course gets a hold of a car. And you know these things are supposed to be hide in plain sight machines, and where this Terminators of the past were all men, this Terminator is a girl. So of course now everybody gets to view what it's like to have a female Terminator now. This machine though is slightly different. It can, unlike the prior Terminators, this one can form weapons. It's interesting actually. This one can suddenly form weapons, plasma weapons. Can't do guns, but it can do plasma weapons. It can do a lot of different things. It can do saw blades, things like that. It comes in handy. But nonetheless, the other Terminator comes through too, and so you got it's like a bunch of face-offs between these two Terminators. And of course, it's obvious they're trying to make the TX. They call it the TX. The advanced Terminator is called the TX, and it's played by Christiana Loken. Whereas the old model is still played by Arnold Schwarzenegger. This movie is notably lacking Sarah Connor. Apparently, she died of cancer or something like that. It's not entirely clear. That's what we're invoked to believe. So yeah, this is noticeably lacking Sarah Connor, basically Linda Hamilton. Um, and more or less this movie turns into one giant chase sequence. I don't think it ever really lets up, except for when they have to go out of the city area and head into the deserts, way out in the desert. Apparently, I have to get lost out there somewhere because the whole story is that TX can find him, and she's that much better. But yeah, it was interesting how the Terminator showed up. Oh yeah, the TX also has nanotechnology. It's shown very well taking control of various emergency vehicles in a scene that I'm not sure was supposed to be typically funny or not, but nonetheless, there it is. That's what happened. But nonetheless, we have our movie, and basically it turns into a big long chase sequence. I mean, the thing about this movie was it was the first movie to have such huge CGI sequences in it. There's a whole bunch of sequences. One particularly involving a construction crane. Arnold's going through multiple buildings. Construction cranes basically destroying everything on a street, and it kind of turns into a minor mess because I think it was getting a little bit too over the top. There's too much here to explain to authorities, although I don't think the Terminators are particularly concerned about that. The 101 model is basically saying, the countdown to Skynet's takeover is literally within, what, 12 hours or so? Not even that. It's literally in a few hours. There's just not much time to do anything. That was the basic point of the movie, is that they're almost going to attempt to stop it, but then they find out what time all this stuff's supposed to happen, and it sounds like it's basically within the same day. This is different than the other movies. In the other movies, they had a little bit more time to do things. The other movies take place over a day or two. This movie takes place literally over less than 12 hours, I think. Basically, also the subplot is that the communications grids are starting to fail because Skynet is starting to take over everything. Apparently, it found its tendrils made their way out of the system and made their way into the general environment of commercial computing. At least that's the explanation. But nonetheless, yeah, the global communications are starting to fail. They're starting to have major problems with them. And yeah, this is basically Rise of the Machines. At the end of the movie, it's clear that this is supposed to be the insignia of Judgment Day, when the nuclear weapons get launched, and all the mayhem happens. Now, the problem with this movie is it's not entirely clear what the objectives of the Terminators were. Like, I mean, so much of this movie is simply about, I guess, John Connor has to be whisked off to safety. Has to be taken out of Los Angeles and headed up north, heading up to wherever he is being headed up to get him out of danger zones, more or less. And the TX is there to try and eliminate him. That's more or less what's happening in this movie, is that unlike the first movie, which is about just simply protecting Sarah Connor, the second movie is John Connor has to be saved, but he has to be sort of taken out of state. But in this movie, they whisk him off to safety. There's not really many options left. Basically, they sent Terminators back in time to a final attempt to get rid of him before Judgment Day goes down, and lots of people meet their end. I think this movie's not terribly bad. Then again, I don't know. As time passes, it gets steadily more boring to watch, because like when it first came out, it was interesting to watch. As more and more time passes between it now, it's becoming the kind of the outloaded movie. It's not particularly interesting to watch anymore because too many subplots develop, too much weirdness goes on. There is an interesting subplot where they decide to use Skynet to search out what they think is the super virus. The super virus being the thing that they think is taking out global communications. and it's actually Skynet, and of course they use Skynet to go after this virus. Of course, they opened up Skynet to the world net, and that's exactly where Skynet. It's like, yay, I got out, cool. So that's, and it ends up being that's the end. Now Skynet's got full control over global communications. But yeah, this movie gets more silly with every passing viewing. The older it gets, the worse it gets. It's not a terrible movie. It's not particularly good anymore. It's too much repeat, too much trying to hide the fact that Sarah Connor couldn't be brought in for this movie. Um, yeah, it's more or less how it goes down. So yeah, this is how the machines come up. It doesn't do a particularly great job of that. I guess it's trying to do some world building, but nonetheless, it's not very. I think it's actually the well, actually it's not the worst of the Terminators, but it's a steady down the line of the franchise. Yeah, there it is.